Hey guys, welcome back to the Make Good Fashion podcast. I'm so excited you're here. So, today I want to talk about a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for so long. Something that I've noticed that has been changing in the industry, changing in fashion wholesale, and that is vendor direct. Now, if you guys don't know what vendor direct is, I'm going to explain that to you in this episode. I'm going to tell you why it's the future. So, traditionally, when it comes to fashion wholesaling, which is getting your brand into retail shops, how it would work is that a retail store, like let's say, I don't know, let's say Macy's, right? They're interested in carrying your brand. So they would place an order with your brand. So let's say Macy's wants to buy $100,000 worth of your product. So they would write you a PO, a purchase order, place your order for how many pieces they want of each style. They would then give you that order. You would produce all that product for that order. When it's ready to ship, you would ship it off to Macy's. Macy's would hand you a check for $100,000 for that order. And then they would mark it up and sell it in their retail store, right? And so that is the traditional wholesale model. But what's been happening lately in our industry is we've been seeing more vendor direct partnerships. So the difference between vendor direct and traditional wholesale is that with vendor direct, another word for it would be like drop shipping, right? So what the stores are starting to do is that they want to carry your brand, right? But they don't want the risk. Because let's say traditionally when they would place those big orders, sometimes the brands wouldn't move, right? Like people wouldn't be as receptive to these brands. They wouldn't be buying it. So then the stores would have to put it on sale and on clearance it to try to get those products out, all that stuff that they purchased, right? And so vendor direct gives stores more insurance because what happens with vendor direct is, for example, Madewell does this. If you go on madewell.com, you will see a section on their website called Brands We Love. And it's a bunch of brands that they carry, that they curate aside from their Madewell brand, right? So products on there are vendor direct, meaning that Madewell just has the brand send over photos of their product to put on the Madewell website. But instead of Madewell purchasing a huge order worth of the product, the vendors fulfill the order when it's purchased on Madewell.com. So, for example, my brand was on Madewell.com, brands we love. And let's say someone purchased my product from Madewell.com. We would then fulfill the product from our warehouse and send it directly to the customers, right? That's why it's called vendor direct, because the vendors fulfill the item directly. So it looks like it's coming from Madewell, but it's actually coming from the vendor. So Madewell is just using the brand's product photos, and the brands are actually fulfilling the product. I hope that makes sense. I know it can get confusing. So you may be wondering, why would they do it this way instead of having the physical inventory that they can ship out themselves? And how do they make money from this? All of that. So let me answer the question first, how the stores would make money from this. So for example, well, when anything is purchased from Madewell and we ship out that product, Madewell makes a percentage of our sales. So they're getting a commission from the sales, but they don't have to mark up the product like you would traditionally wholesale. So they're just getting a commission and then we get the rest. So let's say, I don't remember what the commission was, but let's say the commission is they take 20% and then we get 80% of the sales. So how this benefits any stores that are doing vendor direct is they get to carry more product on their website without the risk of holding all of that inventory, and they still get a commission from each of the brands that they carry sales. And so this is the future of wholesale, you guys. I have seen so many retailers do this now. Nordstrom is doing it, Madewell does it, Macy's does it. Now, what does this mean for brands? So it means several things. For brands, one, this means that it can be easier to get retail placement because now that the stakes aren't so high with stores taking risk on emerging designers, they're willing to bring in more and more designers using this vendor direct low risk model. So it's easier for brands to get their feet in the door using vendor direct. And the good thing about vendor direct too, if your brand is performing very well vendor direct, a lot of times you have the chance to just get a traditional wholesale order from the stores that you're working with because they know that they can invest in your brand and that it already has proven sales through their website, right? It's also great for brands because, when you get a huge order from one of those bigger retail stores, department stores, and things like that, it can be not only risky for the store, but for you as well. Because if your brand does not perform well, and you honestly do not know if it's going to perform well until it hits the store floor, because your brand could do really good on your online store with your direct to consumer customers, but it can be purchased by a certain store and not do well at that store. And the thing about that is that can hurt your brand reputation. If it's not performing as well, the stores are not happy with you. They're not going to place more orders. And so it can become really, challenging because you don't want to hurt that relationship with that retail partner, right? Whereas opposed to with vendor direct, you can test things out because you're just selling whatever you have in inventory, right? Because they're just pulling from your warehouse inventory. So if there are certain things that are doing better than other things, then that's great, to stock up more on that. If something's not performing as well, there's no risk to the retailer because they're not losing any money. One way that I feel like it kind of sucks for brands is getting those traditional huge orders right up front, getting the huge check for, thousands of dollars for however many of your pieces is really great. That's a great feeling to get a huge lump sum of money instead of having to wait and get paid each and every time an order is made through your retail partner's site. One thing that is good though is that a lot of the stores that do vendor direct, they will wait to pay you until the end of the month. So you still get a lump sum of money, but it's not like, the traditional wholesale model. But again, if you do well vendor direct, there's always a chance that that store will be willing to invest in you for larger retail orders. So something to keep in mind. So all that to say is I really believe vendor direct is the future of wholesale. I've seen in the last few years more and more orders of vendor direct. I think the pandemic hurt a lot of retailers in the sense that brands weren't able to get the orders in store in time. There was a lot of backed up product because of manufacturing overseas and everything had stopped and it was just a mess, right? And then buying behaviors kind of changed too with customers. So we are in this time where people are being more cautious of their spending, but retail stores have to place orders a year in advance sometimes for the things that they're going to have in stock. And so it's hard to know what's going to happen in the world. Like, are we going to have another crazy event like we did? So I think retailers are a little bit scared to take a big risk right now, and vendor direct feels safe. And so you got to be aware of this and to be aware that this is the future. Now, how can you have a piece of the pie? How can you get involved in vendor direct wholesale partnerships? Now, this works the same way as any retail partnership. And I spoke about in the last episode how you can start getting these retail partnerships. Like I said before, with larger retailers, it can be a little bit more challenging, but you want to position yourself to get in front of them. And so, one thing I would say is one, start following some of the buyers for these stores on social media. I think that's really helpful to just engage with them, get your brand before them. Two, once you start following them, try to get an email for them and pitch them the same way you would. Check their website and see if they have a marketplace. Usually they're called marketplaces where they sell vendor direct product, and pitch them that you're interested in being carried vendor direct. There's also things like if you are a minority owned business, there is a 15% pledge. And just creating a profile on their website is a great way to get in front of those larger retailers that do vendor direct. And it's completely free to create a profile on their website. And you also want to do things just as simple as keeping your brand presence out there, right? Like you want to get your brand out there. You want to show up. You want to hashtag. You want to make sure that you have a digital presence. Last thing I would say, if you're interested in vendor direct partnerships, is that a lot of times one retailer will see you from the next retailer, right? So if you get a vendor direct partnership, for example, my brand got a vendor direct partnership with Madewell, right? From that partnership with Madewell, Nordstrom saw us on Madewell and they loved our brand. So then they reached out to us about a vendor direct opportunity. And so it's like a trickle effect. It's kind of like a popularity contest. If you can get one, then you can get another one. So just start somewhere. So I hope that was helpful and hope you learned a little bit about vendor direct. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing and brought a little bit of insight and shed a little light about what's going on right now in the industry in the wholesale arena. If this video was helpful to you, make sure to like and comment what you learned. and also share with someone that it may be helpful to. Also, subscribe to our channel for more tips on how to start, launch, and grow your purpose-driven fashion brand. Until next time, you guys, I'll see you in another episode of Make Good Fashion. Bye. Hey, brand founders. Are you ready to take the first step toward getting your design in retail stores? Well, I've got the perfect resource to help you get started. And that's our beginner's guide to getting your fashion brand into retail stores. A free step-by-step guide created to help emerging brands like yours break into the retail world. Inside, you'll discover how to find retailers that are the perfect match for your brand, what materials you need to impress buyers, and tips for navigating wholesale like a pro. To download this free guide, click the link in the description or head over to makegoodfashion.com/retail guide and start turning your retail goals into a reality.